So, Bill, what did you bring? What is this? What am I looking at?
There's a story. So the first one there, when I first came out here, I was with ABC Television for 8.5 years, and I left there. I was looking for a smaller company to go to where I could actually have an impact on what they did in terms of, what they were working on. Because I felt like, even though I was a unit manager, I felt like I was just a small little piece of sand in this big machine. So I jumped off to Lorimar. I looked at several companies, and Lorimar is the one where I landed. They were at MGM at the time, which is now Sony. Mm-hmm. And they gave me, it wasn't an office. I was in, what do they call those? They put partitions up and you sit there and it's...
Oh, like a cubicle.
Cubicle. They gave me a cubicle and it had been deserted for some time. And the desk there had folders, notebooks, things that people didn't want to look at anymore. And it was basically storage, but they didn't want to put the stuff in deep storage. They still wanted to go get it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
So I got rid of all the stuff on the desk, and then I started looking through the drawers. I didn't have anything to put in them, but I just started looking. This document was in the bottom right-hand drawer of the desk, and I don't know if it had been sitting there all that time or whatever.
Wow.
Of course, this is not the original. And the original's no better. It's just a piece of paper like this.
And can you just, what exactly is this?
It's a cost report. Mm-hmm. It looks like a final cost report on Wizard of Oz.
It's insane to look at. This is insane to even behold.
So it's amazing what you see from this. And it sort of describes the studio system at the time because... They spent $75,000. This is 1937 or 38 when it went into production. They spent $75,000 for the book. And then the scenario, I believe, is them hiring writers to adapt it and make changes as they went. It's so far over budget, that particular part, that I have to believe that they kept writers on every day who were going to the set. And you'll see, I attached to it, you'll see on Warner Brothers memo paper, a production summary of it. I started there in July of 1986. So I've been sitting on this original paper all these years.
Wow.
And then I posted it on Facebook one time, and there were a lot of comments about it and questions. People asking, well, where the
hell did you get this?
Yeah.
Oh, that too. Yeah, that too. So I thought, well, I'm just going to do a memo. I'll do a memo to nobody, right? Just to distribution to nobody on what my, as a unit manager and then as a production executive, what this means.
So that's what's on the other page is what
the memo.
2 pages, my analysis of it. And it's a brief analysis because this is a really brief piece of paper.
Yeah,
it's so one page.
You have all the money, what the director made is star and cast all together as one line. And then miscellaneous. All the rest of the charges are miscellaneous. So that is... From just set construction to craft service.
Just to paint a picture for
miscellaneous.
People. It says, for final cost, it says the book was $75,000. The scenario was $82,000. The director was $148,000. Star and cast was $474,000. And then under one miscellaneous line is $1.988 million.
Jesus Christ.
The pre-costs would be the budgeted costs. See,
so there was no budget for miscellaneous.
They used a slightly different terminology.
What is a scenario? I don't even know what a scenario is. The script?
Yeah. So those are writers they hired. So you'll see they budgeted $30,000 and it came out to 82 plus. The director was budgeted at $11,000. He came in at 148.
I did a quick, I just plugged this into the inflation calculator really quick. $75,000 in 1930 today is $1.4 million. So they spent about $1.4 million just on acquiring the rights and then about another $1.5 million just to translate it into a script.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh my
Unbelievable.
God. On this episode of Sips and Clips, we sit down with post-production legend Bill Daly, former senior vice president of post-production at Warner Brothers Pictures. We cover a wild range of stories, from sharing a college campus with Pope Leo, to guarding the ABC lot as a security guard, to his analysis of a lost and found Wizard of Oz cost summary. We dive into revolutionary post-budget spreadsheets, Bill's front row seat to the infamous Philosopher Stone title debacle, and the timeless difference between pigs and hogs. Oh, and of course, how the post industry has transformed over the years and where it's headed next. Buckle up, this one's a ride. Here is part 1 of our interview with Bill Daly. Welcome to this episode of Sips and Clips. My name is Leanne McFalls.
My name is Michael Schusterman.
And we have got the legendary, I might say, he's laughing at me, but legendary Bill Daly on our podcast today. Bill, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm known mostly as the Senior Vice President of Post-Production at Warner Brothers Pictures, but I did have a career before I got into the movies.
And how many years were you the Senior Vice President of Post-Production? That
was the longest single position I ever had, but it probably wasn't more than like 8 years, maybe 7 years. I was, when I started out in the business, I was at ABC Television in the 70s. I was just hungry to get my foot in the door. So I started there as a security guard, believe it or not.
Really?
I have pictures to prove it.
Yeah.
I started as a security guard. After about a week and a half, they got me, they got Jeff Downer. You should look up Jeff Downer. He's a producer.
Okay.
And they put us at the gates. The guy that I would relieve when I went in, when I got there at 8 a.m, the person I relieved who was manning the main gate was this shaved head, earring wearing, Fu Manchu, tattoos, but you couldn't see them because we had to wear suits. A missing tooth in the front.
Oh my God.
He looked like your worst vision of a biker. Okay. And I'm betting
like a biker gone bad. Like a poor
exactly
biker.
Who you want protecting.
And I'm betting
TV
that somebody from New York had all the juice at ABC. That's where the corporate headquarters were. Or maybe from somebody in Century City, because that was where the corporate offices were. I'm betting somebody came in early in the morning, saw him, and said, "This is what people first see when they come to our studio. Is this what we want representing us?" And the thing is, at the time, the head of the West Coast operation for the local station, KABC, was Elton Rule, the heir apparent. He was the guy that Leonard Goldenson wanted to take over the corporation when Leonard decided to retire. But if you went to the other studios in those days, CBS, and I'd been to all of them. I'd gone to all of them looking for jobs.
What was it like looking for a job in those days? You knocked on the door and
You'll
said,
be jealous.
I do want to, I did want to ask, although I feel like we need to quickly talk about what we're sipping on.
Oh, yes.
We got so
we're so invested.
Invested in these stories. We're going to start with Bill as he takes a sip with what Bill is sipping on.
Crystal Geyser. Water.
Nothing better, right? Crystal Geyser.
I'm driving. I had to drive here. If you guys came to my house, I would have gotten you drunk.
We could have been drinking.
So maybe if there's a part 2.
Amazing. Guys, stay hydrated out there, though, people. So on that note, Michael, what are you drinking?
I literally have just driven here from a campsite in Big Bear. So my back of my car was filled with all of the leftover beer that we had from our campsite. So I grabbed 2 of them, and I'm sipping on a Mango Cart Golden Road and a Strawberry Crate hard cider from Trader Joe's. It's the first time I've had alcohol on this podcast. So.
Okay, now everybody take note that he knew he was coming in here. There's 4 of us. He knew he was coming here.
I
only brought 2. He only brought 2.
I know.
Admittedly, I offered.
He's mad because the time that we did drink alcohol on the podcast, he was not here. And so he's trying to make up for it by
bringing in my exotic hipster drinks.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so I will extend an invitation to come to my place because my wife was an executive with ABC and Disney for 36 years.
Yeah, right.
So she'll drink you all under the table.
All right, maybe
gladly
next
follow-up episode.
We'll have to ask her. I am
What are you
drinking.
sipping on, Leanne?
I am drinking a Spindrift soda. People,
Lovely.
It is an orange cream float. I love Spindrift. I love that they have the Spindrift soda thing out now. Very good flavors. A little bit more. Got some fun flavors compared to the normal Spindrift, and I'm really enjoying it. I treat myself with these.
Lovely. Do they taste like Olipop? I feel like it looks like that. Like they're
Well, have you had Spindrift?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so it just tastes like that, but the flavor is orange cream float.
Oh, okay.
Instead of, it's not like a probiotic soda. It's just like a seltzer-y water.
Are you guys looking for sponsors? Is that why you're bringing these?
We wish. We constantly bring up
wish.
stuff and we're like, we should get a sponsor, but
We should send samples to these people, especially the
Yeah, we should.
People.
We should. But I do want to start with, you were telling us a little bit about it, but way back, going even before you were out here, what got you interested in even becoming...
It's all I ever wanted to do since I was 5 years old.
5 years old.
Was be in the movies.
I would be, or TV. They were all the same to me. We were watching the classic old Warner Brothers Westerns and all. It's ironic that I ended up at Warner Brothers because that's one of my earliest memories of television is the aerial shot of the lot, and the logo coming up, Warner Brothers television production.
Yeah.
And where did you grow up?
Outside Philadelphia, very close to her. She went to my school.
Yes,
I went
know.
to her school. Yeah.
I got another Temple alum on here.
Temple. I'm going to start bringing Chapman people 24/7.
You brought so many. We have this kind of running, not spoken competition because Michael's from Chapman.
Between Chapman and
so
Temple.
he brings Chapman on, then I bring Temple, and I'm like, got to get more Temple people on.
Well, I moved out here. Well, it's what I wanted to do since I was 5, so I was totally focused on that as a kid.
Did you want to make films
through
or
high
just
school? Yeah,
just
I was
be
one
involved,
of those,
like anything?
I was one of those nerds who had the Super 8 camera, and I was doing stuff.
Yeah.
You didn't want to be in the movies; you wanted to make them.
Well, I'd be in them too. I have a Screen Actors Guild card.
Do you really?
I think I did know. Yeah.
I got Taft-Hartley'd for a Philadelphia TV show when I was 9 years old.
Oh my God.
And I would have just gone into AFTRA directly, but I couldn't afford it. I was 9. I couldn't afford the
union dues.
The fee to get in. And the fee was, we're talking about 1962. It was probably $60 or $50, And then later I was Taft-Hartley'd on a movie into SAG. I was Taft-Hartley into SAG when I was 14. Wow. And the only thing people are going to remember about me from high school is that I was headed to California and I was going to be in the movies. I was going to Hollywood.
That was your special thing.
Well, the thing is that I have an identical twin brother.
Do you really?
Yeah. And I'm in the Temple Hall of Fame, but I'm also in my high school Hall of Fame. When I found out they had a Hall of Fame, I never thought I'd be in it, but I am. I told when I had to give a speech, I said, you really should have given this award to somebody like my brother, somebody who was a good student, somebody who was an outstanding athlete, somebody who set down roots in the community and had a family, paid taxes, and just, was a good neighbor. All I did was leave town to pursue my dreams.
Yeah.
And the people at school will remember both of us, but the only thing they're going to remember about me is that I was headed to California. I mean, that's really the only thing. And I still have my high school yearbooks, and I see people writing,
Right, yeah.
They write about the movies that I did, and I used to take pictures all the time, the pictures I took, and that's...
Was that like a particularly unique thing to go out? Because I feel like nowadays people from the East Coast or the West Coast, wherever, will move to New York, they'll move to California right when they graduate high school. It's not that big of a deal. Was that like a really big deal at the time to be like, I'm leaving my town and going to California? It must have been.
I'm not the only one, though. There was a guy a year ahead of me who went to New York. He came out here, but he went to New York, and he became a soap opera star, and he lived like 200 yards from me.
Wow.
I come from our township is made up of like 6 or 7 towns, and the town I'm from is called Garrett Hill. And I just showed a friend of mine today because they had a 4th of July parade there the day before yesterday. And I said, hey, come over here. See that? That's where I'm from. See, that's it. That's the whole town right there. This one shot. Okay.
I will say, at least for me, just to answer your question from my side, being from East Coast, my family has always lived in around the same area. So like it's like my mom's family and my dad's family all grew up on like sister schools, and like they moved maybe 20 minutes away, like when they got older. And at least when I talk to my family, they say like, oh, you went out to California. I could never go out to California. Like, it's just like, that's all that they kind of know. I'm sure that it's different, and there's like a few exceptions.
Yeah.
But at least that's the way that I kind of knew it. Like, it wasn't like, oh my God, you can't leave. It was just like, you didn't. Like, it was just like in your head. It was just like, well, I'm just here. Like,
well, that was me too. And when we were picking colleges, And I remember our English teacher going around, what school are you planning to go to? You know, to everybody. And to me, University of Southern California. Wow, why so far away?
Yeah.
Why so far away? I didn't get into USC. I wasn't as diligent with my grades. I graduated in the top half of my class, but that's about the best I could say.
Okay, yeah.
So I didn't get into there, and then I thought, well, I'll move out here because in-state tuition was a lot less to go to UCLA.
Right, of course.
So I moved out here. I established roots. I applied to UCLA.
Did you go to Temple for film?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it went, I don't know what happened at UCLA, but I finally had to call them and say, "What? I have to make plans." It's usually they let you know like January, February. I'm calling them in April saying, "I have to make plans.
Geez.
I haven't heard from you guys." Yeah. So
to get in.
Yeah, I have to make plans to come out, to move out here. Well, everybody else knows where they're going.
Yeah.
And I was already living here. So they said, well, it was so stupid. What they said to me was so stupid. Well, go check your mailbox. We mailed that out months ago. Go check your mailbox. Like, you know, in a rude manner.
Jeez.
You know? So I digested it, and then I complained. And then they said, well, we're going to withdraw your application. I didn't get in. They were telling me I didn't get in. We're going to withdraw your application, send everything back to you, including your check. So I left California, went back because I figured, well, I'll just go to Temple. And then I've got the option of New York or LA again. But when I graduated, I came out here. I mean, I worked over the summer to get enough money to come out here. Came out here with only $600.
Wow.
You know, in 1977.
Yeah.
You know, and it's ludicrous to think of that.
It is.
But in the meantime, I got a job at the American College in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, and they paid my tuition to go to classes after school. No, it wasn't Temple. I went to Villanova. It was closer. It was only a mile walk to the Villanova campus. I started there the same time as the Pope.
Really?
The current Pope?
No,
Pope
oh my
Leo?
God.
You went to classes with Pope Leo?
I don't know. I didn't know him then. But he and I started at the same time. Now, I transferred out. I transferred. Now, my twin brother went to Villanova. He was 2 years ahead of me because I came out here and I fiddle fucked around and, you know, all that stuff. But
so I'm sorry, you started at Villanova or you started at Temple?
I started at Villanova.
Okay.
And then I transferred to Temple.
Got it.
The first year. And so I started it. I didn't have enough credits to get out of my freshman year. So I started at Temple like as a freshman. So I went the whole 4 years to Temple.
So you started at Villanova when the Pope was there, and then you had about a year there.
At the same time. We started there in 1973, at the same time.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That is insane.
And then I transferred out. He stayed behind. I don't know whatever happened to him.
Did you ever know?
Yeah, whatever happened to
Did you ever know you were like, oh yeah, there's this famous cardinal I went to school with? Or was this a discovery you made like a few months ago? When
it was only when he became Pope.
You were like, oh my God, I went to college with him at the same time.
I still get all the alumni stuff like you do from Temple. I get them from USC.
Oh, from
because I did graduate work at USC. I get it from USC. I get it from Villanova. I get it from Temple. Yeah, so it's funny. And the thing is that we were altar boys in that church on the college campus. My parents were married in that church.
So am I.
We were baptized in that church.
Wow. I don't know what it's like now, but you have to, at least at the time, you had to reserve that church like a few years in advance.
Wow,
for
really?
You to like get met, like
it's a year or two. It's a beautiful church and it has these broad green lawns. So you could take pictures out there. Weddings and stuff.
Wow.
So then after you graduated, you're out here and then...
I came out here. Yeah. I don't remember the date that I hit town. I left Philadelphia the last couple days of October.
Okay.
I had arranged for a place. It was an apartment thing. It was called Howard's Weekly Apartments. They had a couple in Hollywood. They had one on the West Side, one in Burbank. And I figured Hollywood would be more centrally located than Burbank would be. Mm-hmm. So we settled in. I started going everywhere. I mean, I went to MGM, I went to Disney, I went to...
This is 1977.
All the different places. And you could fill in applications then. They had personnel departments. You could fill in applications.
Yeah.
You actually have...
into an HR department? Like you're walking, you walk up to Paramount or whatever and you say, where's the HR department? You walk in there, they say, fill out an application, and then you drop it off and leave?
Yeah.
Wow.
Universal was the most organized because their HR department had a door that was outside the main gate. So you could just go right there. They were the only one that were like that. I went to CBS, Television City. I went to NBC when it was, on Alameda.
And what are you applying? Like, is it just a general application, or do they have
I was putting down,
specific...
I would do anything commensurate basically with my education and my prior experience.
Okay.
So that leads to when I visited NBC and CBS, they had these very stern police-looking guards there, all in these uniforms, and it was very severe, sort of forbidding sort of look. Elton Rule didn't want that. We were dressed in jackets and ties, and we had a page staff there, and usually there were 2 page staff members with me at the main gate when I was working in case somebody needed to be taken somewhere. I remember Gene Kelly came in and one of the guys was dying to take him up to the rehearsal hall. He was choreographing the Oscars that year. And the only difference was we had these navy blue jackets, gray pants, black tie, white shirt, clip-on tie. I mean, it was so... and then I had a patch on my pocket. It had the ABC logo in it, same as theirs. The only difference is it said security over top. And that was the only difference between me and the page staff. So somebody, and maybe it was Elton Rule was the guy who said he didn't want the guards at ABC to look like that. He wanted it more to look like a campus than a TV studio. And the difference also was that CBS and NBC were all housed in one big building. All those stages were all like in one huge building. ABC Prospect, it's now the Prospect Studios, was the old Vitagraph Studios. So every department was in like a different building. So it really was like a campus. It was kind of like if you look at the Jerry Lewis movie, The Errand Boy, and that's all on the Paramount lot, but it looked a lot like that because that was my next thing. I was only a guard for a couple months. And then I got into the mailroom.
Okay.
I was the only guard with a college education, magna cum laude.
Wow.
I mean, and the idea of the page staff, not so much security, but the idea of the page staff was that they were supposed to make connections. They were supposed to network and they eventually leave and go like with a producer.
Work on someone's desk or go do something like that.
And now at ABC, they didn't enforce that, but NBC did. You had an 18-month term as a page.
Oh, wow.
And then you were out.
Wow. If you didn't find something in 18 months.
Yeah, if you couldn't make inroads in 18 months. And the thing is, if you couldn't make inroads, you had to be stupid. I mean, So I was there, like I started, they had me doing night shift stuff, walking around with a flashlight and I finally did that for like a week and a half. And I don't know when I started, but I do know that my first day was the Monday of Thanksgiving. And I wondered if I would get Thanksgiving off.
Right.
Because the networks are 24 hours, 24/7.
Yeah.
And you never know.
Never know.
So, but I did have Thanksgiving off.
Wow. Oh, wow. Good for you. Good for you.
And I was in New Orleans on the 11th. And I don't know what day Thanksgiving was, but it couldn't have been more than 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
It's probably like
that's how long I was out of work. Car drive from New Orleans to Memphis, to Dallas, to the West Coast, to the week beginning Thanksgiving. So it couldn't have been more than 10 days, maybe 7 days. And that's the longest period of unemployment I had since I hit
Wow.
Okay, that's why I said you were going to be so jealous.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never struggled. So I was in the mailroom. I jumped into the mailroom. Boy, I learned everybody. I knew everybody when I was in the mailroom.
Okay,
I mean, I knew enough people when I was the gate guard. When I was a guard, I fixed my sights. I knew I was going to get in there somehow. Yeah. And it never occurred to me. I get this question. So before you ask, people always ask me, well, didn't you have a plan B? You went out there with $600, and it's like, this sounds stupid. It never occurred to me that I might fail. It just flat out never occurred to me. So I never had that on my back.
That's sort of how I felt. I remember when I first kind of came out here, I had a plan B to potentially do like engineering or something. But then I took a pre-engineering course in high school and I like didn't like it. And I was like, well, this is all I got.
I was always hustling. I had a paper route when I was 11 and I've worked ever since until I retired. I had a full-time job at the post office when my last couple of years of high school. I would go to the Bryn Mawr news agency every Thursday and pick up Variety. And they'd see it. They'd all see it.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember the jokes, oh, you're a song and dance man, or you're this and that, you know. and I would be asked, well, you know, nobody gets jobs doing that. What are you going to do, you know, when you have nowhere to live? It wasn't when I'm, you know, but, you know, what are you going to do? And I had a really sort of snotty, pretentious response to that. And that was, it's art. I'll just suffer for my art.
Yeah. So what was your first like real show that you got onto after you get the mail?
Welcome Back, Kotter.
Really?
I set my sight as a guard for unit managers. You know, I'd been on movie sets when I was younger. I kind of set my sights on directing, like everybody, you know, wanted to be a director. We had, in Garrett Hill, an independent movie came. Richard Bartlett was the director. And if you look him up, he used to do all TV shows back in the 50s. And I was introduced to him as a young cinematographer. And I told Richard Bartlett, you know, I really want to direct. And he said, well, if you want to direct, you need to go to medical school first. And then medical school. Then you can cure your own ulcers.
It's a great one.
Oh, Jesus.
So that's what I always wanted to do. It was just, and I was never going to do anything else. So.
So to concatenate the story, how'd you go from?
Oh, so I got into the mail. I jumped out. Oh, so when I was a guard, the DGA was coming in all the time. They had labor relations was like I had my guard shack and it was literally the front door of the administration building was literally like 15 feet away. And on the second floor is labor relations. So whenever there were contracts happening, people who looked like gangsters were showing up. Okay? These labor negotiators. I am not exaggerating. People that look like gangsters.
This is like for IATSE and the DGA and the WGA. And
NABET. So National Association of Broadcast Employees and Technicians, engineers and technicians.
Okay.
So I remember telling Irv Novick, he was the VP of labor relations. I said, I was worried about you, Irv, you know, because I saw these shady looking characters coming up to your office. And he said, he was like, he feigned shady looking characters. Well, call me the next time so I can go hide. You know? So they had DGA guys were coming through. And at the time they had the DGA, the test you would do for the DGA training program. I don't know if you would become a DGA trainee at the end of that. And I used to tell people they still have that. It's total fucking waste of time, let me tell you. It's like taking 2 days worth of SATs. And they had it at USC.
I've
met DJ people studying for it.
High security measures in place, you know, and you had to attach your picture to the application. You had to take all this stuff with you when you went to take it. And it took all day, the 2 days. And you'd go and you'd have a lunch break and we'd all be talking about, oh my God, what the fuck is this test? Because it had nothing to do with, I guess it was a psychological profile or something, but it was just.
Was it like math and science?
I think I've heard a few like questions that they asked.
I remember one question was, what is something you can do with this? And it was like a picture of string or something, you know? So I was already fed up with it. So I'm putting down smart-ass remarks like, you could fake everybody out and tell them it's spaghetti. Put tomato sauce on it and tell them it's spaghetti. You could use it as shoelaces. I remember floss. For the longest time, that was one of those things that everybody in my age group had in common. We had all done this test. You could go to a party and you could talk about that test and you'd find 15 people who, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, that was so stupid. And so I was thinking, I didn't know what the structure of the DGA was. And basically the structure is, you know, if you start as a trainee, second AD, first AD, or stage manager if it's television. and then unit manager, and then producer. The DGA, the structure of the DGA doesn't make directors. They make producers. So with all these gangsters that were going up to Irv Novik's office, they had DGA guys, and the guy gave me his card. And I read about the test in Variety, and I asked him about it, and he goes, "Oh yeah," and he gave me his card. He wrote on the back, "This is who you contact," and it was actually the people who run it was like the MPAA or something. It wasn't even the DGA really running it. It was known as that, but it was a producer group that was running it. AMPAS.
Okay, yeah.
So, well, not the MPAA, but the AMPAS. So I got the application. I followed through. I did all that. I gave it to a couple friends who said, "Oh yeah, I'd like to do that." Guys I hung around with, because I set my sights on unit manager department because they were negotiating to be in the DGA. That was why this guy was coming. So I thought, oh great, I'll get in unit managers. I'll get my DGA card. I'll be on my way. I'll be directing. And it's not how it works, but
that's what you thought.
That's my naive. I was still incredibly stupid when I, for an educated man, I was pretty stupid. Okay.
Still didn't know how. It's okay. Yeah. Still didn't know how things worked yet. Yeah.
So then, so I got into unit managers. I got in as a production clerk. We were basically assistants. The first month I was there, they had me doing purchase orders for all of everything on the lot. They had a central location where they would call in for purchase orders, and unit managers had to sign the purchase orders. And we had a specialist. We had this woman who was a specialist in all of the production services who did that. And she was like this old broad who knew everything. I mean, if you sat in her office for a month, like I did, you learned so much. And I knew all the prop houses. I knew all the wardrobe houses, the lumber yards, set construction. I knew all the vendors because, camera equipment, grip equipment, I knew them all because I was writing out POs.
Okay, yeah. So this is kind of how you learned how everything worked.
Well, not how it worked, but that's how I became familiar with, and what the prices of stuff were. Mm-hmm. And I only did that for a month. I mean, I was so incredibly lucky. And I got pulled out of there. I got sent to Soap. Do you remember Soap?
No.
I don't think so.
Soap was a primetime show. It was a comedy that was basically a soap opera, but it was poking fun. It was Spinal Tap of soaps.
Wow.
Okay.
That's crazy.
I guess just to shorten things up, how do you go from being a unit manager to a net? You basically stay. I mean, you eventually jump over to Warner Brothers.
Well, what I did was I felt like I'd gone as far as I was going to with ABC. With ABC. Plus, ABC was looking for someone to buy. Elton Rule had prostate cancer. They kept it a secret. And Leonard Goldenson panicked because suddenly the heir apparent might not survive.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And then he was looking for a buyer. They sold it to Cap Cities. I left right before that. And then Disney ended up buying it. So I left, and I was looking for a smaller production company where I could actually have an impact on what they were doing. And I ended up at Lorimar.
Led to this report on our desk.
Yeah, I ended up at Lorimar. A year after I started at Lorimar, we actually bought the MGM lot because Ted Turner bought MGM, all of MGM, sold us the lot, and then sold us and Disney the Metro Color Lab. One of the reasons they hired me is because I was well-versed in video. And they were going to get into first-run syndication on video. And the first show they did was She's the Sheriff, but I was hired like a year before that. I ended up at Warner's because we bought the MGM lot, and then Warner Brothers bought us. Mm-hmm.
I see.
But in the meantime, I'd done all these TV shows at Lorimar.
And what was your role?
I was a production auditor. Okay. So half of my job as a unit manager was doing budgets, but I was also doing call sheets and getting camera people and and all this. We had a pool of people. I didn't have to go to the outside and get them, but I was hiring freelance ADs. There was a period of about 2.5 years where I was actually assigned to the network getting shows on the air.
So you were there for the Warner acquisition as it was
Yes. I was at Lorimar for that. And then I had just come back from Chicago. I was doing Gabriel's Fire. That was a James Earl Jones series. I went to Chicago for a couple of months to do the pilot. And when I got back, the show got picked up by CBS. We didn't have a stage at MGM or at the Culver Studios. We were about to buy the Culver Studios too.
Okay, yeah.
There wasn't space there, so my boss called me in and said, "I'm going to have to send you over to Burbank." And I'm like so disingenuously going, "Oh, darn." because I lived in Arcadia. Okay, it was a 26-mile commute to Culver City,
Jeez,
and it was a 13-mile commute to Burbank.
Oh my God, yeah.
So I'm like, man. So I got sent to Burbank. It was the first week of July 1990. I got sent to Burbank, and I was told my marching orders were get the lay of the land, go out and meet everybody, meet all the department heads. Even call a big meeting if you need to. I didn't do that. I went and met everybody individually because I would much rather have a personal thing. I don't want to preside over some convention, some rally.
Yeah.
You know? And then she said, we probably are all going to end up having to go to Burbank eventually. I can't believe they're going to let us stay out here. So get the lay of the land, meet everybody, figure out how they do things, figure out what their procedures are so that we can follow theirs and not become a burden to them. And also, when we eventually all move over there, you will be our conduit to, if somebody has a problem, they'll come to you and you'll know who they need to go to.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got there in July of 1990. So I got around, I met everybody, but I impressed the woman who ran that same department at Warner Brothers. I was only getting to lay the land and meeting everybody for 2 months, and Warner Brothers hired me. They wanted me.
They wanted you to not be at Lorimar. They were like, we want you to be here.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
So the production controller for Warner Brothers then hired me and brought me in. And she said, don't worry, I'll take care of, my boss was Mary Van Houten, who was legendary in that world. Don't worry, I'll talk to Mary, on all this stuff.
So you're out in Burbank. Everybody moved over.
Well, it took a couple years before they moved over.
Yeah.
What happened was, by the time they moved over, I wasn't doing television anymore.
So at this point, you're still a unit manager?
No, I was a production auditor. So I was doing budgets.
You're still
doing
a production
budgets
auditor.
and cost reports. When I got into Warner Brothers, it was the same thing, but they assigned me to post-production. So the structure there was that when you came in, the new guy would have to go to post-production. In much the same way.
I was going to ask, how did you get over to post?
In much like the new guys had to do purchase orders at ABC, you had to do post-production. The thing about post was that all of the production auditors said, I don't know anything about post. They would always say that to me. I don't know anything about post. I need your help. I don't know anything about post.
Yeah.
And I would tell them, it's editorial. If you look at a budget, it's editorial, it's music, it's sound, film and lab, titles. Meanwhile, you have mastered extras, transportation, what drivers.
So many more departments.
Way more shit.
Way more
stuff.
It's so complicated.
Yeah.
Costumes, hair and makeup,
because
locations,
all of editorial is now, it didn't used to be, it's now a national 700 union.
Right, yeah.
They're all, sound editors are the same as picture editors. Remember I told you might want to look at sound if you want to be an editor? Because it's the same union.
Yeah, it's easy.
Same union.
Might be a little easier to get in.
But every movie has usually one editor, sometimes two, if like we'd see action comedies where they'd hire an action editor and a comedy editor. And then sometimes it gets too big. The movies get too big and you need more than one. Or you have Oliver Stone who will have 3 different editors all competing with one another. That's not the way to make a movie. And I got lucky. So I was very lucky at Warner Brothers when I got there too, because I shared the same last name as the chairman of Warner Brothers.
Oh, yes, yes.
So, so if I made a phone call, it got returned. Well, it's a double-edged sword, though, because it provided me opportunity. It opened doors, but I also had to be very careful not to embarrass him.
Right.
It cut both ways, but mostly one way. Because I wasn't going to embarrass him no matter what I did. I remember going up to him and introducing myself, and he kind of looked at me, and I said, yeah, I'm the guy that's been getting all your mail, especially like Christmas season, because Christmas packages would end up in my office.
You get all the
oh, my gosh, yeah.
And I'd send them up and stuff like that, sometimes with something funny or whatever, And so I went over to him one day at a screening and introduced myself, and he kind of looked at me, and I said, yeah, I'm the guy that's been getting all your packages. And all your mail. And he said, will you just start keeping it, would you?
He's like, can you look through and see what's worth sending back up to me and what's not?
So I got I got assigned to Post.
Assigned to Post.
And then I made myself invaluable to them.
And so what was your position at right now when you were in Post?
I started there as a senior production auditor. After I was in Post for a year or so, I became manager of production budgeting.
And then after that
After that, I became director of production budgeting. And then the next year, that was in 1996. The next year I became director of post-production. And then in 2001 or 2002, I got promoted to vice president. And then like 8 or 9 months later, I got promoted to senior vice president.
Wow.
Why stay in Post if your heart was doing something else? I mean, there's something about Post that you went.
It was when I first got there, I was given a lot of leeway to do things. And I remember I went to Fred one time, and because I was in charge of looking at cost reports for, the other people that are doing the Post stuff. And I went to Fred one day and said, "Who does your budgets?" He said, "I don't know. They come from Bill Young's area." And I said, "Well, they're not doing it right." And someday Bill Young is going to be gone, and the next guy in is going to say, "You guys don't know how to budget." So he said, "Well, then make one up." So I called MIS. I called up final cost reports on every Warner Brothers film that we produced, not the co-ventures and not the ones that we mostly distributed. I just want the Warner Brothers produced movies, and I don't want the wild cards, and I went back 10 years, I think, or whatever. So I went through and did an analysis. It didn't take that long, but it took me some time to go through them all and figure out what we were actually spending. Now, my task was not
just on Post.
Yeah. My task was not to change the culture there. My task was to accurately report and anticipate what we were going to be spending. So I created the budget template for post-production.
Wow.
And since I created it, I had intimate knowledge of it. So I would get these phone calls from some producer asking about Post. I'd be in my car and they'd be asking me a question about Post. And I go, okay, if you go into 4585, you'll see that there's an allowance there. I think that should probably cover what it is you need to know. And at the time, I could tell him what the number was. There's an allowance number there. And then in 4703, you're going to see there's an allowance there for tape to film, because it would be tape to magnetic film at the time.
Yeah.
I would drill down to one thing, just from memory. I would drill down to one thing in the budget.
You knew exactly what everything was.
I would tell them what it was for.
So they would be like, "Why are we spending so much on section 14 EB?" And you're like, "Oh, that's your ADR recording, or that's your Foley recording, or that's your whatever."
Some of it would be that. The producers are smarter than you think.
Yeah.
Some of it would be that. Usually when they were calling me, it was, what can we rob from? What part
I want to spend more on X.
What part of Peter can we rob to pay Paul? Gotcha. That's usually what it was.
I just want to circle back a little bit, though. The jump to being a VP of Post in general, what was that jump like? Because that's like going from really managing stuff to being like, a higher level executive.
It didn't affect me.
I'm just curious how it happened.
Personally,
what was the thing that caused that to happen?
I was complaining that I wanted it. I wanted the position because I was director level. I was tired of having to put up with VPs. The senior VP came as a surprise to me, but I just pushed because I was tired of having to just be at a disadvantage when I was talking to other VPs. And I had a VP that I reported to who was more engaged in visual effects at the time, and I was tired of having to wait around. I wouldn't wait around for approval to do things. I would just go ahead and do it. My big thing was to get the job done, and that's from my television days. You need to make air,
right? Yeah.
And then I would get bawled out for not waiting for approval, even though I would have gotten the approval. I mean, it was all so stupid. And then I went to our boss together. He went to Temple too, and I said, I'm frustrated on this and that, and I don't want to report to her. And the thing is that aside from the trouble I was having with approvals and stuff, absolutely, I was in love with her. She was great. I mean, she really was great and fun to be around. and all, but it was just it felt like I couldn't get my job.
It was almost like a logistical problem. You're like, I'm trying to make these movies, I'm trying to get these budgets approved, I'm trying to give these editors and these directors what they need to do, and I'm being hamstrung by bureaucracy.
And it's not just that. It was, if you have to go seek approval all the time, then people think you are not really in charge and you don't know how to do your job.
Yeah.
And that's not the impression I wanted people to have.
Right. Yeah.
So
I want to know, you touched a little bit on it, talking about budgets and everything, but as the senior vice president of post-production, what exactly did that role entail? Was it just budgets, or was it, along with that, I mean, you're overseeing so many films. So like, how are you keeping track of them? Are you remembering everything? You got everything color-coded? You have, everything kind of separated and organized? What is the process?
And then I'm to tack onto that question, I'm a little curious because, our perspective is from an editorial point of view. And every time I interact with post executives, it's always because generally something has gone wrong or things are going wrong. If the movies I'm working on are going smoothly, I rarely am even setting up calls between the director and the post executives, whatever. That only ever seems to happen when things are in trouble. So from your perspective, are you like, if a movie's going great and I don't have to get involved, I don't want to be involved? Or, how are you balancing that kind of act of it?
Once I got to the senior vice president level, I could no longer, it became difficult for me to go to sets and go to cutting rooms because everybody thought someone was in trouble.
If you were there.
Yeah. So, because I would show up. The thing is that I loved the process. I don't need to spend time on sets. I've done enough of that when I was a unit manager, when I had to babysit General Hospital 365 days a year. I don't need to be on a set, but I love the process. I always loved the process. And movie people are, they're movie people. Like theater people are theater people. TV people are animals. So when I was director level, it was a big deal only because Daly was showing up. And sometimes people didn't know which one was showing up, and I didn't call ahead. I would go out. I would go to cutting rooms just to say hello.
Right.
And it would be like, what's wrong?
You're like, I just want to say hi.
I was in the building. I came in to say hello. How you doing? Do you need anything?
Yeah.
It's just like that, and I would do that and sound editorial as well. I'm not holier than anybody else. I just
want to say hi.
So when I became a senior VP, it became harder for me to do that. I was a disruptive presence in the room.
So what would your, day-to-day kind of life look like?
Well, let me tell you what we would involve ourselves with.
And
this
please.
Gives you this other document here. This was one of the last ones before I left there. That's a production status report. We used to just call it our agenda. I almost, when I got here this evening, I almost asked you guys the question that always opened up all of our morning meetings, especially Monday morning. Okay. Did you see anything good this weekend?
Great. Yep.
Because
great morning weekend. Morning question.
It was the unwritten thing that we were expected to know what was going
on.
Right. Yeah.
So that was the thing. And I still have that habit. And I mostly go to matinees because we used to watch dailies in Screening Room 2 at 2:00 every day. So I go to matinees and it's like still being at work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you watch dailies? You watch dailies of your productions?
Especially like now when this doesn't happen at the AMC, but when I go to the Regal now to a matinee, I'm there with 4 other people.
Right. Yeah.
So it feels like a daily screening. You're in there in an empty theater.
Yeah.
So circling back to being an SVP, when you've got all these movies on your slate and you're doing your weekly weekly meetings with all of everybody who's managing all these films, how are you prioritizing your time? How do you prioritize which films really need your attention and which ones don't?
I had other executives working for me who, at first, 2 of them weren't exactly up to the task, so they had special skills that I didn't have. But by the time we all left, they were very, very good. I had executives working for me who would do a lot of the day-to-day thing. I held on to Harry Potter when that started, and I was director level when that started. But I just held on to it. I became the primary guy in America to do the Harry Potter. But they would do the other things, and then I would look over their shoulder or be there for questions. And I was tough on them too.
And were you just like, you overseeing all of this, is that also, as part being the SVP, this is you just kind of like knowing the ins and outs of what's going on, so that like what exactly, I guess I'm wondering.
Well, what
was
I
part
did,
of the job,
the way I kept track of everything when I first got there, when I first established and took possession of my position, I got a whiteboard, and it took up, because we had 24. Well, if you put out 24 movies a year,
It's 2 a
you've
month.
got more than that happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember I went to the set of Mars Attacks. I went over there because I wanted to meet Pierce Brosnan, and he asked me, "So how many projects do you have going right now?" I said 41.
Jesus.
Because I counted them that morning.
all at the same time happening.
I looked at you have to have all this stuff in the pipeline, and the issues up front that we would all be aware of. Those were the things that were always in the background that you needed to be aware of.
Okay. Yeah.
And they were really good at this kind of communication. So I had a whiteboard that took up an entire wall, and it would have all the start dates, when this was going to happen.
Yeah. And is most of your time spent on projects that are actively in post, or projects that are in development or production, and you're advising on stuff?
When it's in deep development, I'm not even aware of it. I don't pay attention to it until I get a script. So when it makes the move from
development to a script,
from deep development to here, this is pending. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
When it gets to pending, that's when I'm asking for scripts.
For those of you who are just listening, we're looking at a weekly production status report, and it has a list of all of the films that were being worked on. It
starts out with a list, and then it goes into detail.
And so this is just me inferring, but I'm guessing like somebody hands you Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban and say, okay, here's the script for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. And you look at it and you go, is your first thing going, okay, this is going to cost X amount, that's going to cost X amount, that's going to cost X amount? Well, is that like what your expertise is?
Harry Potter is a poor example.
Okay, sorry, Jupiter Ascending.
And not Prisoner of Azkaban.
Okay, Jupiter Ascending.
No, but I would get, oh God. One. Well, is Jupiter Ascending on here?
It is on here, yeah.
What a terrible movie.
Okay, how about a good one?
No. But any one of these movies, I would get a script.
Yeah.
And then there are certain things I'm looking out for. Is there a montage?
Okay.
What are the music cues? And my first bit of advice was always, and we had a music department who got into the nuts and bolts, but we would involve ourselves because they were so busy making deals that sometimes they lost sight of the practical things that they needed to do. But the first thing I would say is you need to take this reference to Frank Sinatra out.
Okay, yeah.
You'll have a scene, he turns the lights down, they move to the sofa. He puts on the record player, the strains of Frank Sinatra singing Stranger in the Night can be heard in the background. And we say, no, you take that out because these scripts go out to all the agencies for somebody's going to see Frank Sinatra's name on there. Suddenly it's $1 million to use that song. Yep. When at the last second, if the director makes a call and says, hey, can I get like a 15-second needle drop on Strangers in the Night, they can make some sort of deal. But if it's in a script and it says Frank Sinatra, because they think it's necessary. But we would go through the script. We'd look for montages. We'd look for visual effects things. A wave crashes over the house. Well, how are you going to do that? It's obviously it's visual effects. It's how are you going to get that model airplane to fly? Obviously, it's going to be on a wire. So we would write that down. We write it down on a script, and when we would go to meetings and say, okay, well, how are you going to do this? What do you And visual effects people would be on board with this too. We would and everybody would watch out for everyone else too. That's why we'd make music notes.
I'm curious, when you were doing it, was it like you were going to the director and saying, okay, how are you going to do this wave crashing? Or is the director coming to you and say, how can I do this wave crashing?
No, it would be, we would talk about it in this meeting, and then there would be like a smaller meeting, and they'd get people involved. Usually it'd be with the creative development people, the creative execs.
Gotcha.
And they would do the initial talking and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then we would figure out what it would cost to do that.
And then you bring in
How
ILM.
do you plan to do this?
Somebody from ILM and be like, how much does this cost you?
Well, see, that's the thing too, is that you have to pick your vendors wisely. ILM can't do everything. Mm-hmm. They specialize in certain things. I mean, if you wanted a soup to nuts thing, they'd be the guys to go to because they would figure it all out. But a lot of times, like if it's compositing, you'd go to Cinesite. If it's wire removal, you'd go to another place. If it was, if it involved water, yes, you would go to ILM.
So this sounds like you're bringing this expertise to these scripts and being like, oh, I think we should bring on this vendor because they're really good at this kind of visual effect that would be really good for this.
They had a visual effects department. Like when I first got into post, it was post-production and visual effects.
Yeah.
And then there was a whole political thing that happened, and it had to do with money because visual effects suddenly became the most expensive item on the budget.
Yep.
And when visual effects started to become more expensive than the rest of the movie, then the president of our division wanted
a separate department handling
it.
He
wanted a separate department, but it didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened at Fox first. So the head of post and visual effects suddenly lost visual effects to someone else. And the very next day was when they did it at Warner Brothers.
So you go through all these scripts and you tell them, how much each kind of element, I'm just going to say that, might be.
And you're flagging issues of
But
note.
see, production does it too. We have production execs who are on a par with us, who are doing all the production stuff. So we gather all these notes together and we send around a budget, and I get to see the budget.
Okay.
I don't get to approve it, but I get to see it, and I make my notes. How are you going to do this? How you don't have enough for this? You've got voices coming out of the walls. You don't have enough in ADR for that. How are you going to do that?
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like that. And that's usually at the budgeting stage where, and all this is happening concurrently. And then it finally gets the green light. Mostly, with the first pass on a budget, those movies are way, way more expensive than what they finally end up being. There's a lot of compromises to bring the budget down to a palatable number because we had a thing called the Ultimates, and I'm sure all the studios have them. The Ultimates are an analysis of, given the actors involved, the director, whether the writer is someone of repute, the kind of movie it is, what time the release date is, what time of year, and all that. All of these become factors in how much we think ultimately we can make from this movie. So it's box office. Well, it's domestic box office first, then international box office. And then it's ancillary markets,
streaming rights,
home video, TV. How much do we think this is going to make? And then the budget has to come into a number that's a certain percentage lower than that.
Yeah.
If we're going to, because we are a business, we have to make money. And the movie gets a green light or not, mostly based on the Ultimates. There's a lot of movies out there that I worked on that didn't end up at Warner Brothers, Gangs of New York. We couldn't afford to make that. Even though Time Warner was this huge thing and we had a $2 billion pool of money to make our movies, we couldn't afford to make that movie because we weren't going to get it back.
A hypothetical situation, like you've got a movie that's got an ultimate of $100 million. And so your well, let's say, it's an ultimate of, let's just say it's an ultimate of $100 million. Right. And so you're like, okay, that means our budget needs to come under $50 million or whatever number you're trying to get to.
Yeah, I know.
And so you're sitting at the desk with other SVPs negotiating and wheeling and dealing with each other to get that production budget under there and figure out what you can and cannot do?
No, it's a lot more autocratic than that. And it wasn't me.
Really?
It wasn't me. So we would have a Monday meeting where we just discussed post-production. And then we'd go at 4 p.m. and go meet with theatrical production management. We were part of that, but these are the production guys. And we'd go through all the issues. Tuesday mornings, we met in the president's conference room. So it was Lorenzo. I mean, before that it was Bruce Berman. We went through all these different presidents. So during my tenure, Jeff Robinoff really was there the most amount of time. So we'd go into Robinoff's thing with all of his people. He'd bring all his creative development people into, and they'd have the lawyers there. Music people would be there. I'm trying to think if distribution would be, and once in a while they would. Even international sometimes would be there, but generally not. And we would go through what the issues are, and that's what this is. These are the issues.
All the budget stuff.
And we took this document with us everywhere we went in that week. This came out on Mondays, and then Wednesday morning.
You just go through all the films that you had at the time and go through the budgets of everything.
This. And then anything that popped up, what are we doing with Potter?
Gotcha.
Like that. Because we had a period where J.K. Rowling had writer's block in between 4 and 5. And a lot of us were hoping she'd stay on the writer's block because we wanted to catch up. No, we really did.
Yeah.
And the thing is with Harry Potter, we never got scripts. Like we would work it out. It would all be negotiated with the guys in London. They didn't want pirates because it was.
They were digging through her trash. I mean, at the time, it was Pottermania was pretty insane at the time
because it was they were such high profile movies.
Yeah.
The pirates were looking for scripts so they could do the subtitles for their pirated DVDs they were putting out, the Russians and the Chinese, you know?
My God.
And we would have to destroy DTS discs and stuff when we were finished with them.
Yeah.
So we never got scripts because that way they wouldn't get out. And but Roy Button and his group and David Heyman and David Barron, you know, the producers there, were really, really good at what they did. So we didn't really worry about that. But we would we would give them input. How are you going to do this? Have you thought of this? You know, stuff like that. But we didn't tell them what to do. We never got books in advance. We would be out at those midnight things too. And we would be reading those books. And you'd go into them, you know, if they had a opening on a Wednesday, it was always some date, you know, and it was always like in the middle of the week. They couldn't do it on a Friday.
Half-Blood Prince
we'd
is
be
coming
out there on a Tuesday night at midnight, and we didn't get any leeway at all. You know,
and you're like, I got to read this book as fast as possible for a work meeting on Monday or whatever.
Well, that's the thing. And it wasn't that. We wouldn't have a meeting about it until it ended up impending. But we wanted to know in advance where we were going.
The problems
from the book. Because a lot of characters are missing from the books. And we never got any word about it. And we'd be out there. And the next morning, it's not like we had to be prepared for the next morning, but we'd be getting coffee in the morning and somebody would say, "Oh man, I read that." No. I haven't read it yet.
I haven't gotten that far yet.
You know?
Thank you for listening to part 1 of our episode with Bill Daly. Tune in next time for part 2. Sips and Clips is a podcast produced by Leanne McFalls and Michael Schusterman. Graphic by Max Schulman. Sound mixing by Cassidy Legan. Sound editing by Zach Griffin. Follow us on Instagram at Sips and Clips Pod. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.